Welcome back to P5 Live Walkthrough. In this video, we'll get into the Menu Sketches panel. So let's just walk through what we have here. We have a new sketch. Clicking on that takes us right to a new sketch. Every time we click it again, it's just the demo for new until we press a key. And that way we don't have a ton of untitled news. I'm going to delete that real quick. We can always clone a sketch. So this is a really nice way to work on something. Every change we make is being saved to that sketch. So if I were to, let's change this a bit, 128. This is now a part of this sketch. It's constantly saving just by every key press what that sketch is. So what is really nice to do is clone the sketch. And now I have the exact same thing, just with a 01 until I rename it. And then I could go and test out some different things. Maybe I change the fill to a stroke and say no fill to see what that looks like. And then I would give this a rename. I can simply click on it and say this is the outline version. And then I have these two sketches, and then maybe I want to clone that again and say clone. And now it's that full name with a little suffix on it. If I clone it again, it just keeps adding these suffixes to make sure that they have unique names. Once you start cloning a bunch of these, so these are similar but different, I'll play with the colors here to make them a bit different from each other. Maybe this one is grayscale. This one will be the same, but I'll go back to a fill and turn off that line or even get rid of it. I now have my different versions and I want to start to get organized. So I can press a new folder and give it a name. I'll call this P5 Live Walkthrough. What is this? This is like a splash screen. And now I can carefully drag and drop these things into there. I just start clicking, dragging, and now I can click on it to open it up. There I see those things as I added them. And I can close this, I can rearrange it and move it between other sketches or put it back at the top. Ooh, it's thinking about it, there we go. And I can open, close this. It'll remember if I had it open when I refresh the page. So it holds onto that state. And it's just a nice way to be organized. We can even put folders within folders. Let's call this meta folder and throw it in there, and we can get super organized if we want to. Good luck getting everything in there. It's a little bit of you have to be careful. I think I'm getting lucky because I'm recording this. If I don't want a folder, I can just remove, but I'll talk about this contextual menu in a minute. Next, it's often really important to be able to import sketches, but first you probably want to export sketches, so I'll jump past that and look at this export all sketches. And this is super important. I mentioned this in the very first video, that everything we do inside of P5 Live is only living inside of your local storage. So I'm going to quickly look at like a debug view and open up not the console, but the application view. And this is what the local storage is in the browser. I click on it and I can see all of the sketches along with my settings for P5 Live. There's all sorts of information hiding out here. And this is where it's storing everything. So there's no cloud. It never goes up online anywhere. And the big reason for that is that we can work offline without internet if we install the offline version. So again, we have to be really careful that we don't go and erase our browser settings or history. You may have to figure out a way to make this page exempt from that. Otherwise, it's good to once in a while press this export all sketches. I press that. It just downloaded a file, and there is P5 Live sketches with a timestamp, so I can keep track of when it was. There's other ways that we can back up P5 Live I'll get into when I show you the settings panel. For importing, whenever you've been saving sketches, we can export the folders, we can export a single sketch. When we want to bring it back into P5 Live, we can either press the import button and go find that sketch. I'll go grab, for example, those sketches I just exported, and it tells me, hey, you already have these sketches. These are duplicates. which I could say skip the ones that were duplicates. If I was missing a couple, it's a nice way to make sure I have everything. Or I really could import these again and it would give them a unique name just in case I think they're out of sync. But I'll say cancel. I can also just drag and drop into the window from the Finder. So I have a sketch that I exported in the last video. I'll drag and drop it and it says, do you want to load that sketch? Yes, I do. And that is the demo that I had in the previous video. The contextual menu, I already have this sketch, so I wanted to quickly see what was that sketch. I gave it a great name of new_001. I realized I had this sketch, I don't need it anymore. That's where we have this contextual menu. You just put your mouse over a sketch or a folder, you see these three dots, and then we can do a few things. I can inspect it, and that just brings up the code in a separate window, which I can even edit and save. I'll get into this when I show you how we can fix a bug if we somehow crash the sketch and we really need to fix it and it's causing the browser problems. But essentially, it's a really great way that if I say, how does audio analysis work? I want to steal some code from that sketch. I can open up this inspect and go say, yeah, I want the setup audio, I want update audio, and then I better go copy those functions as well. So really useful just from your own sketches. If you kind of know you did something, you don't have to change to that sketch to be able to use it and borrow from it. Renaming is, again, the exact same as just clicking on it if it's the active sketch, but we can also go rename other sketches that are not active. So if I say Slinky was the wrong name, I could go rename it and say Slinky change. Not so exciting. That was a bad idea. I just change it back and say, just kidding. I can export a single sketch, so I wouldn't export this new and make it even more confusing. Maybe this meta sketch, or rather this walkthrough, the very first one, I want to export just that sketch, and there it is. It just became a special file that's waiting for importing to P5 Live. So there's some metadata in there, keeping track of if it was multiple sketches, which version of P5 Live, in case I update things, it'll know how to keep track of that. But we can export these things and always bring them back into this environment. Last but not least, I can remove, and I already have this sketch, so I'm just going to say trash, and yep, that's fine. And then it takes me to the next sketch that was available from my list, the top sketch. I can go and do the same thing to folders. I can rename the folder. I can add a subfolder. So this is a easier way than creating a folder and trying to fit it inside of there. I can just say, hey, I want a subfolder. What do you want to call it? It knows my existing name and says, maybe you want something like this. And I'll say subfolder. And there it is at the top, waiting for me to try to get it in there. There we go. So there's a folder within a folder with a sketch in that folder. I can export that whole collection. I could export this sub collection, any of the above. I'm going to export this whole folder and say export. It downloaded a file with that exact name and a timestamp. I can drag and drop it back in just to see what it looks like. And it shows me the folder structure and says, hey, you've got this folder, this sketch. So this is great. If you have a whole lot of sketches, this can be really nice for a workshop where maybe you have some beginning sketches looking in different domains, type, audio, whatever, and you just want your students to have those as a starting point. Then you can just give them this single file they drag and drop and have the starting point for a workshop or so. What am I missing? Yeah, we can rearrange things. So we can, of course, take the folder out of there. If that was a mistake, I don't want that subfolder. I can say, go back to the top level. It's going to think about it for a second because of maybe some animation things running. Let's hope it quickly. There we go. There might just be too many things open and running. But I can really rearrange things and I can say, this is actually supposed to be part of that folder and that folder. And I can slowly say, I don't want that folder anymore. This is the right folder. So we can rearrange and move everything around. And maybe last but not least, the filter is really helpful when you start to get a lot of sketches. I'm going to jump to my offline version where I have 1,000 sketches, playing with this thing since creating it 2 years ago. And all the sketches live there since the start across online, offline, but I easily lose track of stuff. And I want to say, what was a sketch I did with typography? So I type in typo, and I can find a few sketches where maybe I used the word typo. I could say type, and then I find, okay, there's some stuff with type. Sometimes I'm trying to get into shaders, and so I could type in shader and see a few different examples that I've messed with those, or maybe some VJ stuff where I actually called it VJ, what have you, performance. No, not performance. I wanted to look into, this is probably taking a little while because there's that many have some presentations in this environment, which is something maybe I'll get into or share as a library later, how we can use this to give talks and slideshows. So the filter is really helpful just to reduce things. I'll go back to this demo page, and let's say I had multiple sketches that are about this sort of P5 Live walkthrough. It can be a really nice way to help you arrange if it's starting to get out of hand. I take it back. I will use the offline version because I know I have some cleanups to do. I have a lot of new sketches that need to get organized. So I could say, let's go find all the new sketches. I'm up to new 62. It means I'm not doing such a good job naming these. I'll create a new folder called new sort. And because it has that same name, it's new is part of it, then I can just start throwing these things in there. It doesn't show me that it's expanded because by default the folders open themselves up so we can see everything. And this just gives me a chance to collect those things and deal with them sooner than later. Okay, that's the sketches menu. I think that's all I need to tell you about that. So I'll see you in the next video.